Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pure Faith Podcast, a podcast where we discuss all things Bible. I am your co-host, Michele, and this is my silly brother, Mitchell, and he's your host. And we ask that you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit the notification icons to be notified when new episodes are released. I was going to talk really fast, like that one commercial, and then just have you move my lips, see if people could keep up. You don't watch TV, never mind. You're fine. How are you?
Okay.
We both have
Confused
blue
right now.
on. Well, mine's like a darker blue.
I would say it's more like a gray.
It's supposed to be blue.
Okay.
How's life been treating you? I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Ooh, I did see you the other day, though, because you picked up those meal prep.
I did.
Hey, how'd
I
that
ate
go?
them. I ate them.
Is that all you have to say about that?
No, it's
So
good.
we're doing a protein meal prep,
Yeah.
and I made meal preps, and Mitchell came and picked them up, and we're just testing out some recipes.
Yeah.
So
It wasn't bad.
it needed some sauce.
It was a little dry, but
There you go. I told you I was gonna need some sauce.
other than that, it was good. I mean, it just fried veggies and
Yep.
chicken on rice.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's the stuff you can get anywhere. Yeah. I
it was good.
haven't done the other recipe yet. I'm kind of running out of time. We got a big event coming up this weekend, but it's not this weekend to you people, but it's this weekend to us. And we have Daniel's graduation from high school party and Olivia and Owen's going away party. They are moving to
And
Utah.
they are hitting the road.
They are hitting the road. Yes. So we'll have a party and then they'll get up the next morning and they will travel.
Become Mormons.
Well, let's just not. This has been a very big topic. Oh my gosh. Don told Owen just think you can have more than one wife once you get out there. I'm like, Don, what are you doing? Oh my gosh. So yeah. Well, they will be fine. They will be just fine. We're excited for them. I keep telling her it's a 5-year plan. So I think she also is agreeing that it'll be a 5-year plan. So, but we'll see what happens. Exciting times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
really affect me any.
No, it really doesn't, except for you're supposed to be making her a prayer board, and I don't know if you've made one yet. And if you
Right.
haven't, then I think Mom's sending hers, and then you have to replace Mom's. Do you know anything about the prayer board?
There may have been a comment made.
And nothing's been done with it.
That's about as far as I can go. I got a lot of other projects.
I know you do. Believe me.
So,
I
yeah,
understand.
you're going to have to take somebody else's and I'll make them another one.
Yeah, I think that will be what the plan is too. But I'm afraid she takes mine, I'll never get one, so I'm just gonna have her take Mom's. Mine's like in the kitchen,
I
a
think there's
full
like
view.
3 or 4 of them that I need to make.
Yeah, I don't remember where
I think Clayton and Ashley, I need to make one for Clayton and Ashley. I know them for sure. I don't know who else. I think there's a few of them that I had to make.
Did you make one for Noah and Elle yet?
I think so.
I don't know.
I don't know. You have this. Your son. Ask him.
Yeah, that's the first thing we talk about.
Well, it should be.
Well, it's not. So, sorry about your luck. All right. What are we doing? Look, I got dirt everywhere like I was working.
I should put up the picture of my boys from.
Oh
this
my
past weekend.
gosh. How are your mud pies?
I-
Because I'm going to say there were a lot of them being made.
All I know is
They were a mess.
I pulled into the house. I was going for military this past
Did you see the pictures of before you got to the house, or was this a complete surprise?
I think Paige sent them like shortly after I left. So I kind of got a glance at them, but I was driving, so I didn't actually see them. And I get home and yeah. Like they were just
covered.
Yeah.
Head to toe in mud.
Yeah.
In their underwear.
It kind of reminded me of Rambo. When Rambo just kind of you like just see the image, and all of a sudden you just see eyes and like mud, and it's Rambo, and he jumps out and
I know exactly what scene you're talking about.
Yeah, that's kind of what they look like.
Oh my gosh.
Like they were playing that. Like I think that was I don't know.
I
Yeah,
love it.
that's and they're all in their underwear.
Yeah.
So just
Spray them down when they're done. But you know what?
yeah.
That's some of the things that kids don't get to enjoy doing these days. And I wish that my kids played more in the mud. Daniel has made comments that he wishes that he would be more savvy with, like, I don't know, changing a tire, changing a windshield wiper, changing a headlight, because you just don't do these things. Either you go and get it done, or you just have somebody do it when they have time and the kid doesn't learn how to do it. And
Well, tell them to come out to the house because currently I am rebuilding the engine on our tiller and our small tiller, and our big tiller it was broken, and since the small one went out, I was like, oh, I better get this one running. So I got it running, and it ran for like 10 seconds and blew up.
oh my
Like
God.
literally, it seized up, broke all the innards in the engine. I'm like, I'm not going to fix this. So we ended up going out buying another engine.
Oh my
I
gosh.
swapped those engines out. I'm waiting on some parts to come in so I can get that one running.
Yeah.
So I got plenty of stuff that I can
He's
work with you.
he's made comments that he should go out to the barn to get some additional hands-on experience
Oh, I
because
got I
he
got
knows
plenty
you
of stuff.
guys are out there.
Another project I got is we didn't drain the hot tub properly last winter
Mm-hmm.
and busted out everything in the hot tub. So I got all the stuff to rebuild the inside of our
This
hot
is why
tub.
the prayer boards aren't going to get
Exactly. So you better ship yours off to Utah because maybe you'll have one for Christmas.
You guys you and Matt, you both have a lot going on. So, but I'll send Daniel out there. You
I
guys.
can also teach him building construction because we have a chicken house that needs siding put on it.
Oh, he would do that. See, there's all kinds of projects.
Mm-hmm.
Just think he'll be free every morning this summer. There's no more football.
Mm-hmm.
He graduates. So,
Okay, anyways,
yeah.
we ready to get into
I don't
this?
know. I don't know where we left off. It's been so long.
Yeah, because we didn't do anything last week.
No.
But yeah, so we are
Are
in.
you prepared?
Yeah,
Are you?
see all these little
I
yellow post-it notes?
I do
Those
see
are all
these.
notes.
Okay.
I just didn't
So
have any notes.
that's okay. As long as you've got notes, I'll sit and listen.
Um. So yeah, so in our
Are
last
we in
episode,
Hebrews?
we are in Hebrews. We're going to be in Hebrews for a while yet.
Got you.
Um, Hebrews 11:23 is what we covered last week,
Mm-hmm.
or in our last episode.
Yep.
We're going to go. I'm going to read Hebrews 11:24 through 26. I don't know if we'll get through all that. Kind of depends on how big of a tangent I go on. But that's where we're going to try to get through.
Wait,
So,
what did you say we're doing?
Hebrews 11:24 through 26.
Okay.
You
Gotcha.
ready for me to read?
Yep, I'm ready.
This reads, by faith, Moses, when he was grown up,
Mm-hmm.
refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. And these does go on, still talking about Moses, but like I said, there's a lot about Moses here in this section. In our last episode, we talked about Moses' parents, what they went through,
Yeah.
the situation they were in, as far as, you know, the situation they were in when they decided to bring a child into the world, the decisions that would be made upon that child's birth, and just all the decisions that they had to go through. And now,
And how it really
that's what
worked out
this,
in the end. I mean,
yes,
it really did.
they basically chose to ignore the king's
Yep.
edict to
Yep.
kill Moses
Mm-hmm.
and basically go back watch
Yep.
last
Yep.
episode. You'll see all that.
Yep.
So now at the beginning of 24, that's why it's talking about by faith Moses when he was grown up. So now last week we're talking about when he was an infant, the
Mm-hmm.
decisions that his parents made, but now we are jumping forward to Moses' adult life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the decisions that he was making and not so much the decisions that his parents were making. And the biggest decision that Moses made was that he basically chose to walk away from a life of privilege. Because, as we kind of talked about last week, whenever Moses' parents, put him in the basket, put him in the
Yep.
river, he was found by the daughter of Pharaoh.
Mm.
So she adopted him. She took him in. Moses, she's the one that gave him the name Moses. So Moses was the adopted son of the daughter of Pharaoh. That put him in a very high position as far as status goes.
Mm-hmm.
He may not have had much authority per se,
But he was known.
but he was still the son
Yeah.
of the daughter of Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
So he was Pharaoh's grandson,
Mm-hmm.
an adopted grandson, but still grandson.
Mm-hmm.
So that had to have came with a lot of privileges. Um, Obviously, there's probably a lot of financial comfort
Oh, I'm
that
sure.
came with that position. Pretty much anything that he wanted, he probably could have had. And this position is a good example in the decision that he ends up making. This is all kind of a good example of, you know, a position that we all can find ourselves in every day. Now, granted, we don't have, we don't have this unlimited budget that,
Right.
we can have whatever we want whenever we want it. But we still are faced with the decision of the world or God.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the decision that Moses found himself in. Because, like it says in verse 25, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. So Moses chose, like we just talked about, he was in a very, very nice position in life, but it was worldly.
Yes.
Um, Therefore, that's where they're making the correlation, that it would be the pleasures of sin. His position, turning his back on the Hebrew nation, turning his back on a lot of things, and accepting his life as the grandson of Pharaoh and living his life extravagantly because of that position, that would have been a life of sin. He would have been choosing the world
Yeah.
over God. And he could have done that. And if he would have done that, then God would have found somebody else
Yeah.
to fill the role of Moses. But Moses made that choice. He chose to walk away from wealth, comfort, privilege, and instead he chose to join his people, the Hebrew people. He chose a life of servanthood,
Yeah.
and that couldn't have been an easy decision.
No, I'm sure it wasn't.
And if you actually read the story of Moses, he almost becomes a man without a nation because obviously Moses knew that he was not Egyptian. He looked different.
Yeah.
I mean, he just knew that he was not an Egyptian. He knew he was adopted. He knew he was Hebrew. So the story of Moses, he went out one day and he was checking out his Hebrew nation,
Mm-hmm.
his fellow Hebrews,
Mm-hmm.
and he seen an Egyptian soldier beating up a Hebrew, and so he ends up killing this Egyptian and burying him.
Hmm.
Next day, he goes back out and he sees two Hebrews fighting each other, and he's like, "Why are you guys fighting?" And the one is like, "Well, what? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" And so that kind of put it in his mind, like, okay, everybody knows what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you're looking at it from his point of view, he is really alienated. I mean, he was accepted as the Egyptians because he was
Yep.
the adopted son
Right.
of
Pharaoh.
Pharaoh's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever he killed that Egyptian, well, now Pharaoh wanted him dead.
Right.
But he couldn't go to the Hebrews because the Hebrews viewed him as Egyptian.
Right.
Like, even though he was,
Obviously.
I mean, yes, he was obviously a Hebrew,
Mm-hmm.
he was adopted as a baby he was adopted as a
Right.
baby.
And they knew the lifestyle
Yeah,
he grew up in.
but they still didn't like him. We're presuming they still didn't like him because of his position,
Mm-hmm.
of his status. So he was really kind of in a hard spot. And he couldn't go to the Hebrews for protection because Pharaoh was trying to kill him. He couldn't go back to Pharaoh because he killed the Egyptian man. So he was really a man with no nation, no no safety,
Mm-hmm.
and so he did the one thing he could, and he fled.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that more um, a few verses down. But the thing that we really need to focus on here, and as we get into verse 26, he considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. So this reproach, this basically just means that Moses felt or chose that living a life under Christ, even though in the eyes of Christ, he's going to disappoint Christ. He's going to be a failure. I mean, he was a human. Humans are
Right.
naturally sinful.
Yep.
You know, let's be honest here. We break God's heart daily as a human race, and Moses knew that if he chose the way of God, he was going to disappoint God.
Yeah.
But that disappointing God was a bigger reward than being the most highly exalted person in the Pharaoh's eyes.
Yeah.
So instead of ignoring God and taking this life of wealth, of sin, of pleasure, even though he would have had anything and everything he wanted in life, he still wouldn't have had that relationship with God.
Right.
And that's ultimately what brings us true happiness.
Right.
So he walked away from the wealth and everything else, and he made the choice to choose God. And that's the situation that we have to look at
Mm-hmm.
in our daily lives. There is so much of the world around us. And, we are called to, yes, we're going to be living in the world, but we are to be called out of the world. We are not to be of the world. And it would be so easy. Um, we're surrounded by the world to choose that life,
Mm-hmm.
to choose a life of sin, to take what may seem like an easy road at the time,
Right.
even though that easy road is going to lead to destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we see this kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah. Temptations.
Yeah. So it is up to us to make the choice to
Right.
choose God.
Right.
And this this isn't a light choice. It's not. You can't just say, "Oh, I choose God."
Right.
This these
And it's not
times
just
and the rest of the time I choose the
right.
world.
Right. And you can't just do it one day either. It's like an
No,
every day,
every day, every
every hour.
second of every day.
And
So it's either all God
yep.
or it's if one thing you choose worldly, you're choosing the world. So you need to go all in on God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard.
Oh yeah.
And we will fail.
Mm-hmm.
We will sin. We will fall away. But that was the reason Jesus came.
Yeah.
It was through the death on the cross through his burial and resurrection,
Mhm.
that we have access to take our sins to the throne of grace, to ask for forgiveness,
Yeah.
and basically reestablish that connection with God.
Mhm.
So, yes, we will fail, we will fall away, but that doesn't mean we are turning our backs on God. We need to go to God and ask for forgiveness.
Amen.
Well, going back to this whole choice, that's what this whole portion is about. Is about this choice. And I can't emphasize that enough because, like I said, now let's remember who this is written to. This is, we don't know who wrote this. We've discussed that before.
Mhm.
We don't know who actually wrote Hebrews.
Right.
Um, a lot of scholars say it is a sermon, a written out sermon to the Hebrew people. But what we need to focus on or view, especially for who this is written to, the Hebrews. Well, what position were the Hebrews in at the time that this was written? When this was given to the Hebrews, what position were they in? They were faced with that same decision. This was shortly after Jesus. They, a lot of them were Jewish, um, but they had to make the decision. Do I go all in for Christ,
Mhm.
or do I choose the world? So they were, from then to now, the decision has been in front of all of us. And yes, you may be choosing the world now. That doesn't mean you can't choose God.
Right.
From this day forward, you can still choose God.
Mhm.
But yeah, am I beating a dead horse? Probably. Um,
And I just want to say I choose God. Mitchell has said it multiple times. I think let me just give you a hug.
oh, let me guess. Now you're going to ask me to edit that out.
Oh shoot.
Um,
No, but you have to think about like how big of a decision that was for him. I mean,
yes,
life was you want to say life was simple because he had everything. And
he
then he
did.
goes to, of course you think following God is a simple process, but it's so complicated at times too. And especially if you don't know where you belong. A lot of people these days, they don't know where they belong. You can always find comfort in Christ.
Yes. Um, we're going to continue on to verse 27. 27 reads, By faith he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. And this kind of goes with that, the end of 26, for he was looking to the reward,
Mhm.
and now he's looking to the one who's invisible. This is all the fact that Moses, yes, he was in a tight spot because after he killed that Egyptian
Mhm.
soldier, now that made the Pharaoh mad. Now the Pharaoh
No.
wanted to kill him. The other Hebrews in
It's no
Egypt,
wonder you fled.
yeah. So he like we were saying before, he was almost like a man without a nation.
Mhm.
He had to flee. But this is saying when he fled, he wasn't necessarily fleeing because he was scared of the king. It wasn't the fear of the king or the Pharaoh. Sorry. It wasn't the fear of the Pharaoh that made him flee. He was fleeing from that lifestyle.
Mm.
He was fleeing from the worldly stuff. And he was running to a life of Christ because he was looking forward to the reward.
Yeah.
The reward is heaven.
Yeah.
He was looking forward to his eternal life afterwards. He just knew that that time wasn't now, so he had to flee till it was that time. But also, he was looking towards one who was invisible.
Mm.
That's God.
Yeah.
So he had already committed his life to Christ. Um, but so whenever he was fleeing, he wasn't fleeing from the fear that, oh, the Pharaoh wants to kill me. No, he was fleeing from that lifestyle.
Yeah, we can also say that this quote unquote, was his walk of faith.
It was. And the actual story. Go on. Find the right no. So Exodus 2:11-15 is the actual story of Moses fleeing to Egypt, or fleeing from Egypt. And you're acting
I
like
actually thought maybe this might work better. Look at you.
I already covered all that.
I know. I don't understand why you're like, oh, let me check my notes because I made them.
I did make them. See, now you made me lose my spot.
I did. Yep, blame me.
But so yes.
But yeah. So
anyways,
but
and then there was that, and then the next thing happened, and then it rained.
It rained.
I'm sure it rained at some point.
That's a great way to end this.
Who said I was done?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't.
So Exodus 2:11-15. At the end of that is when you see that. Yes, Moses fled.
Yep.
Again, he was. You have to imagine the position he was in. You know, try to put yourself in those shoes. You just walked away from everything you knew, from your family. You know, not only your blood family from your fellow Hebrews, you also walked away
everything
from
you knew.
You know, the family that raised you.
Yeah.
So, you know, the Pharaoh's daughter and everybody in that realm, you walked away from all that.
Mm-hmm.
And now you find yourself, and he actually found himself in, was it Midian? I think it was Midian. And that's where he ended up basically meeting his father-in-law or his future father-in-law and his wife, and had kids, and that's where he started his life. And if you don't know the big picture of Moses, he was roughly 40 years old when he fled. So the first 40 years he spent basically as the adopted son of Pharaoh's daughter. And now this next chapter of his life, the next 40 years, he will spend it as a shepherd. And then his last 40 years is when he goes back to bring the people out of Egypt. Let my people go.
No.
Nope.
No.
Not yet?
Nope.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
You're positive?
Absolutely positive.
Interesting thing, though, is whenever we get to that point, that's where we want to get to in our verse 28.
Okay.
So we'll jump that whole 40 years of being a shepherd and jump straight to the let my people go part.
All right. We thank you for joining us. Please leave a comment on this video or go to our contact page at purefaithliving.com to send us a message. And as always, if you like what you hear, then we ask that you share the show with others so we can all work together in spreading the good news of Jesus Christ. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you again next time.
Have a blessed day, everybody.